There's your opening so far this season. 3 coaches fired, 4 general managers gone. And, Pete, I don't know that the Lions intended this to happen the way that it did. We were all paying attention for the possibility of Bob Quinn, the GM, and Matt Patricia, the head coach, being fired last Friday, the day after they were embarrassed at home by a not great Texans team. But it came Saturday afternoon, and nobody really noticed. Nobody really seemed to care. I think we all kind of expected it. Some were surprised that Quinn went too. I wasn't, because Quinn, from the day he walked through the door, was going to hire Matt Patricia. It was just a question of when. It just hasn't worked there. But this Lions team has been, as an organization, average at best, mediocre most of the time. I don't know how they fix it going forward, but it's clear that what they were doing wasn't good enough, and it was time to rip the Band-Aid off.
You know, Mike, I think it was, the Saturday afternoon news dump, and at a time when so many other things were happening. It was very convenient for the Lions. And look, I think as you go forward when you're Detroit, you have to ask yourself, what kind of team do we want? Do we think we have a lot of good elements in place? Do we want to continue to kid ourselves and say that, hey, we're close, we just need to do X, Y, and Z? Detroit Lions, you're not close. You're not close. So to me, I think this is an opportunity for the Lions to look at the organization and to basically ask yourselves, do we want to totally remake this organization? And if we do, how do we do it exactly? The first question you have to answer, do you want a general manager first? And if you want a general manager first, I've been told by someone who's got to do the picking this year that the general manager group is far better than the head coaching group this year in terms of candidates. You're going to have a number of really good people to choose from. So, do you want to take that GM and then start to remake your organization? And then do you want to hire your head coach? Do you want that GM to hire your head coach? Personally, that's what I would want to do. I don't want anybody inside the Detroit Lions organization hiring a head coach. I just don't want that. Look at the decisions that have been made. Not good. So I would hire the GM, let that GM hire the coach. The first order of business then has to be to decide, are we giving Matthew Stafford another chance? Or are we going to bite the $25 million bullet in 2021, get rid of him either in trade or simply a release? Probably in trade. But are we going to get rid of him and start over? And Mike, I'm just left to ask this one question. Matt Patricia, one of the things that happened that no one talks about is that he somehow, some way got at cross purposes with Darius Slay. So Darius Slay then had to be dumped to Philadelphia instead of re-signed. And then when they had the 3rd pick in the draft, they had to replace Darius Slay because they had no even close to franchise corners. They take Jeff Okudah, who's had a very spotty first year. And what did they do? They passed on Justin Herbert and Tua Tagovailoa. So now, what would you rather have on your roster right now? Jeff Okudah or one of those 2 quarterbacks? I know what my answer is.
Well, and what happened with Patricia and Slay was very simple. Patricia was trying to create that Belichick mentality, that idea that there are no sacred cows, that everyone is going to be called out, and he called out Darius Slay in front of the team, and it upset Darius Slay. And even though they had an intermediary try to unruffle Slay's feathers, it never worked. It was that. And even though Patricia said, I'm going to be my own guy, I'm not going to be like Belichick, when you're with him for 15 years, you don't realize how much you are like him. And he was running the team like Belichick, and it just never went over well. Peter, one quick point that I want to throw back to you as it relates to the notion that the Lions should hire a GM who then hires the head coach. Who's deciding who to hire the GM, though? This is the same group that brought us Matt Millen as the director of football operations for an extended period of time. Somebody's got to know who they're hiring at GM. And that's the first problem. Who's making that decision in Detroit?
It's a great question. And whether it's Rod Wood or obviously the the vestiges of the Ford family, with Sheila Ford Hamp, excuse me. Someone has got to look at this group of general managers and come down with that decision. Mike, it's not an ideal circumstance. It is simply not. But they have to do what the New York Jets have to do. Hire a general manager and get out of the way. And I'm not convinced the Jets are going to do that, but they should.
Yeah, and the other aspect of this that we've been discussing all week, and I've mainly been writing about it at PFT, how these team presidents manage to avoid accountability and continue to be employed.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.